As you know, I have experience, and I bring experience to the race, and we'll bring that to the City Council. I have 2 terms as a Palo Alto School Board member, so I have a record of leadership and outcomes. I'm familiar with the Palo Alto community, and I am used to being held publicly accountable. I have over 22 years as a city planner and as a transportation planner. So I've worked on comprehensive plans, I've updated them, I've worked in environmental impact review documents, and done scores and scores of current planning and policy plannings. In addition, I've been a community activist for 30 years in support of youth, children, education, and the arts. In terms of the issues, there are kind of 3 general areas. The first is sort of economic vitality and budget issues related to the city of Palo Alto. We're at a very difficult time, and I think we have to be very prudent in our decision-making related to the budget. On the school board, I oversaw the budget that grew from $80 million to $125 million. So the second are the land use issues and short and long-term transportation and planning issues that we have before us. I have a background in strategic planning, and clearly the relationship between responsible land use, housing, and transportation, all very much interrelated, are key issues for the community right now. The third area of my campaign is related to the caring community. And what do I mean by that? Well, I can think of 2 or 3 examples. One is, I think that given a lot of the mental health issues and a lot of suffering that's been going on, certainly within the last decade, and the many tragedies and suicides related to our youth, I feel that the city is now beginning to step up to be a more active partner in addressing this serious problem, addressing it, with the community, addressing it with the school district. And I think that it's very important that this issue is taken more seriously. Rather than relegate these discussions to the City School Liaison Committee, I think it should get much greater profile. The other part of the caring community is the relationships we have with one another, the nature of the dialogue, the nature of the engagement. Are we really respectful and listening to one another in trying to solve many complex problems? And the third part of the caring community, in my mind, is a caring community is one that values the dignity of work, promotes and embraces creativity and imagination, and cares deeply about the arts. So I think too often in city government we focus on things, bricks and buildings and roads, and we don't really talk much about people. And as a school board member, I was consistently over 8 years talking about the emotional well-being of students. Now is not the time, in my mind, to be cutting back on community service officers at the high schools. And there's no one panacea here, but the whole issue of education and stigma and what are the things that we can leverage in working in partnership. Discuss how you feel that positively and negatively positions you to be a city council member, especially in an atmosphere right now where we have some significant labor issues to get through. I think it's an advantage to a city council member. It can be an advantage if you bring to these decisions, and we're in a very difficult and challenging time, you bring to this position an ability to have a more of a 360 view. And I've always been a very independent thinker and very skeptical of both sides of every issue. So I would bring that decision-making style with me. I think the fact that we're on the edge of a strike, there have been a lot of difficulties around that, suggests to me that there's a collapse in communication and it's failure on both sides. I'm very unhappy that we're in this situation now. I do believe we should be establishing a joint benefits committee, much like they had in the school district, where between points of crisis they had an ongoing committee that would build rapport and relationships and actually come to this decision making in a more collaborative way. I'm in favor of implementing some of the fiscal issues that have been identified in the audit. prioritize the audit findings, and there are some cost savings there. I would say we need to look at contracting in, which really means the city provides services to other agencies. It's an extension of what we do now. So for example, the fire department provides services to Stamford and to the county. Now, I think there are ways that that could be explored. My approach to these kinds of issues would be to exhaust all of those, absolutely all of those, more creative ideas before you move to the position of wage and benefit.
Question on public access to information in a timely manner, meaning a week or 10 days in advance of a council meeting.
I think if you really want to have a meaningful discussion about any item, people have to have time to review the information and ask questions, et cetera, et cetera. I think it would be clearly preferable to produce those materials earlier. The last couple of years had been very, very difficult and very demanding. And I was in situations repeatedly when I was a minority vote on significant decisions. And I felt that, I look back on that, and I still believe that the decisions I made and the positions I took reflected what a lot of community members felt and were consistent with my beliefs.
Ultimately, isn't your effectiveness as an elected official your ability to build a majority around something you believe in?
Yes, absolutely. But as I said, I had many successes and I had some areas that were not successful. So what happens, like in anything, people remember the pinch points and the controversies. They may not remember the 6 or 8 or 9 things of which I was very much involved in and very much helped make happen.
Tell us how you would have voted if you were on the council on the Alma Plaza proposal that ultimately was approved by the council on a split vote.
Well, since we have 2 of our 4 neighborhood retail centers in complete disarray, I'm quite upset about that. I think at the end of the day, the composite proposal should have had, I believe, more retail serving elements associated with it. I liked mixed use as a concept. I really do, if it's done well.
That's What's wrong with this picture, and what are you going to do to solve it?
Okay. I'm a tremendous fan of looking at best practices in other communities. The PC concept is a very, very, very common zoning technique, planning and zoning technique that's used all over the country, all over the world, right? And why is it that other communities have much better outcomes than we do? I agree with you on the community benefit issue. A lot of these things are not easily quantifiable. There's an issue of enforcement. Those things need to be looked at. What is wrong with that process? How have communities other than Palo Alto handled that? Well, I would say one issue would be to have kind of a clearer understanding of what is truly community benefit. Are there mechanisms that are really reasonable and manageable from the staff point of view and clear enough to an applicant so they know what those expectations are? How do you evaluate those? What are the results that you want? And are you persistent as a staff and as a community, as an elected officials, to say these are the outcomes that we want for these reasons? I guess where I'm concerned is when people, some people have almost suggested, throw the PC out, doesn't work. Well, I don't think that's really a full response. I do believe that it's important to have some flexibility.
You're in favor of Measure A. You don't believe the arguments about it being poorly drafted or bad timing are persuasive?
They're not persuasive. I think there is a phasing in element of this proposal. We are one of 2 cities in the entire state of California that does not have a sales tax.
You mean business license?
Excuse me, business license tax. And it is a time when we need to figure out ways to enhance our general fund. I think we probably need more support of the economic development efforts. And we have just made decisions that don't have an economic element. We have these decisions that we're not mindful of the fiscal impacts of what we're doing.